The fluorescent lights in Cole Hartman's office hummed their usual monotonous tune, a sound he'd grown so accustomed to that he barely noticed it anymore. His desk was covered in permit applications and zoning requests, the kind of paperwork that kept a small town running but rarely required much thought. Outside his window, the November sky hung low and gray over the lake, threatening snow that wouldn't come for another week or two. Cole signed off on a street repair request, his pen scratching across the page in practiced motions. 42 years old, and this was what his life had become: predictable, quiet, safe. The kind of life that never surprised you because nothing ever happened in northern Wisconsin towns like this one. People were born here, grew up here, died here. The cycle repeated with the seasons. The phone on his desk rang, shrill and insistent. He picked it up without looking, tucking it between his shoulder and ear while he continued reading through the next form. Public Works, Cole Hartman speaking. Mr. Hartman? The voice on the other end was young, female, trembling in a way that made Cole pause. This is Jennifer Moss. I'm a teacher at Pinewood Elementary. Cole set down his pen. Teachers didn't call the Public Works Department. What can I do for you? I need you to come to the school. Right away. There was background noise, muffled crying, other voices. Your daughter won't stop crying, and we can't calm her down. She's asking for you. Cole felt his forehead crease. I think you have a wrong number. I don't have a daughter. Sir, The teacher's voice cracked slightly. She has your photo in her backpack. A picture of you. She keeps pointing at it and saying you're her dad. Please, Mr. Hartman. She's terrified of something, and we don't know what to do. The line went dead before Cole could respond. He sat there for a moment, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to the dial tone. A photo of him. A little girl claiming he was her father. None of it made sense. Cole had never married, never had children. He lived alone in a rental house 3 blocks from the lake, spent his evenings reading or fixing old electronics in his garage. His life was simple, solitary by choice. But something about the teacher's voice, that genuine fear threading through her words, made him move. Cole grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair and his keys from the desk drawer. His supervisor, Bill Hendricks, looked up from his computer as Cole passed. Heading out, Bill asked. Emergency at the school, Cole said, not stopping. Be back in an hour. The cold air hit him as soon as he stepped outside, sharp and clean with the scent of pine from the surrounding woods. His Ford pickup sat in the employee parking lot, 15 years old and reliable as sunrise. The engine groaned when he turned the key, protesting the cold, but it caught after a moment. He pulled out onto the empty street, heading toward the elementary school in the north end of town. Pinewood Elementary sat near the lake, a single-story brick building surrounded by bare trees and playground equipment that looked skeletal against the gray sky. Cole hadn't been here since Dean's funeral. 2 years ago, almost to the day, they'd held the service at the church, but the reception had been in the school gymnasium because it was the only space in town large enough to hold everyone who wanted to pay respects. Dean, his younger brother, gone at 36. Cole pushed the thought away as he parked in the visitor lot. Whatever this was about, it had nothing to do with Dean. Couldn't have anything to do with Dean. The front office was warm, overheated in the way schools always seem to be, and smelled like copy paper and floor wax. The secretary, a woman named Margaret who'd been working here since Cole was a student himself, looked up with relief when she saw him. Mr. Hartman, thank God. She's in the nurse's office. Through that door, 3rd on your left. Cole nodded and walked down the hallway, his boots squeaking slightly on the polished linoleum. Children's artwork lined the walls, bright crayon drawings of turkeys and falling leaves. Through classroom doors, he could hear the murmur of lessons in progress, the safe, ordinary sounds of a school day. The nurse's office door was open. Inside, a little girl sat on the examination table, her legs dangling above the floor. She was small, thin, maybe 8 years old. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her face, and her eyes, green eyes, sharp and bright even through the redness of crying, fixed on him the moment he appeared in the doorway. Cole stopped breathing. She looked like him, not just resembled, looked exactly like him. The same high cheekbones, the same stubborn set to her jaw, the same green eyes that had stared back at him from mirrors his entire life. But more than that, she looked like Dean, like a feminine, child-sized version of his brother. The teacher, Jennifer Moss, he assumed, stood beside the table, one hand resting protectively on the girl's shoulder. The school nurse, an older woman Cole didn't recognize, hovered nearby with a box of tissues. "Mr. Hartman," Jennifer said quietly. "This is Mira." The girl's eyes never left his face. She clutched something in her small fists, knuckles white with the force of her grip. Cole took a step closer, moving slowly, the way you'd approach a frightened animal. "Mira," he said softly. "My name's Cole." She unfolded her hands, revealing a photograph, creased and torn at one corner. She held it out to him, her fingers shaking. Cole took it carefully. The photo was old, maybe 15 years, taken on a fishing trip he and Dean had made to Lake Superior. They were standing on a dock, both grinning, holding up a stringer of lake trout. Dean had his arm around Cole's shoulders. They looked happy. They looked like brothers. Cole's throat tightened. "Where did you get this?" Myra's voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from crying. "Dad said if anything happened, I should find you. He said you'd help me." The words hit Cole like a physical blow. "Dad," she meant Dean. "Your father." Cole's voice came out rough. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Your father was my brother. Dean Hartman." Mira nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks again. "He died 2 years ago. He said if Mom ever got mean, I should show you this picture and you'd know what to do." Cole crouched down in front of her, bringing himself to her eye level. Up close, he could see more details that made his chest ache. A small scar on her chin that matched one Dean had gotten falling off his bike as a kid, the exact shade of green in her irises. Dean had a daughter. Dean had a child, and Cole had never known. Never even suspected. "Why are you scared, Mira?" he asked gently. "What happened?" She looked at the teacher, then the nurse, then back at Cole. Her voice dropped even lower. "I can't say. Not here. Mom said she'd know if I told." The nurse spoke up, her tone professional but concerned. "Mr. Hartman, we've tried calling her mother multiple times. No answer. The emergency contact number goes straight to voicemail." Cole's mind raced, trying to piece together information that didn't make sense. Dean had never mentioned having a child. But then, Dean had been secretive about his relationship with Vanessa, the woman he'd dated on and off for years. Cole had met her a handful of times, never liked her. She was sharp-edged, bitter, the kind of person who made every conversation feel like a competition. When Dean died, a car accident on a rainy night, wrapping his truck around a tree on Highway 51, Vanessa hadn't shown up to the funeral. Cole had assumed they'd broken up again, that she'd moved on. He'd been too wrapped up in his own grief to wonder about the details. But apparently, there had been more to the story. Apparently, there had been Mira. "I'll take her home," Cole said, standing up. "I know where her mother lives. I'll make sure she gets there safe." Jennifer looked uncertain. "We really should speak with her mother first. School policy." Her mother's not answering. Cole interrupted, keeping his voice level. "And Mira knows me. I'm her uncle. I'm family." He pulled out his wallet, showing them his driver's license. The last name matched. Mira watched the exchange with those two old eyes, waiting to see if he'd really take her, if he'd really help. After a moment of hesitation, Jennifer nodded. "All right, but please have her mother call us as soon as possible. We're worried about Mira. She's missed a lot of school lately, and when she does come..." She trailed off, but Cole understood what she wasn't saying. When Mira did come, something was wrong. "Come on, sweetheart," Cole said, holding out his hand to Mira. "Let's get you home." Her small hand slipped into his, cold and trembling. She slid off the examination table and followed him out of the nurse's office, down the hallway, past the secretary who watched them go with worried eyes. The pickup truck felt huge with Mira sitting in the passenger seat, buckled in and staring out the window at the gray sky. Cole started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, trying to figure out what to say. "Your dad," he finally began, his voice careful. "Dean, he was a good man. Did he tell you about me?" Mira nodded without looking at him. "He said you fixed things. He said you were smart and careful. And if I ever needed someone to trust, it should be you." Cole's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Dean had told her that 2 years ago, maybe longer. Before he died, he'd known something was wrong, known Mira might need protection someday, and he'd pointed her toward Cole. "Where does your mom live?" Cole asked. "Edge of town, near the old lumber mill." Cole knew the area. It was the poorest part of town, where houses sagged on their foundations and yards were filled with broken-down cars and forgotten children's toys. He'd driven past it countless times, never thinking about who lived there, what kind of lives they led. They drove in silence. Mira kept her face turned toward the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Cole noticed things now that he hadn't in the nurse's office. The way her jacket was too thin for November, the way her jeans were worn at the knees, the way she held herself very still, as if trying not to take up space. The house, when they reached it, was exactly what Cole expected. A small ranch-style structure with peeling white paint and a sagging front porch. The yard was mostly dirt, with patches of dead grass and a rusted swing set that looked like it hadn't been used in years. A battered Chevy Malibu sat in the driveway, primer gray with one missing hubcap. Cole parked on the street and turned off the engine. Mira still hadn't moved. "Is your mom home?" he asked. "Her car's here," Mira said quietly. "She's home." Cole studied the house. Heavy curtains covered the windows. No lights visible inside, despite the gloomy afternoon. The whole place had an air of neglect, of people living there who'd stopped caring what the outside world thought. "I'll walk you to the door," Cole said. They got out of the truck. The November wind cut through the thin trees, carrying the smell of wood smoke and damp earth. Mira walked slowly up the cracked concrete path to the front porch, and Cole followed, his awareness sharpening with each step. Before they reached the door, it swung open. Vanessa stood in the doorway, backlit by the dim interior of the house. She'd aged badly in the 2 years since Dean's funeral. Her blonde hair was darker now, pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her face had a hardness to it that went deeper than wrinkles. She wore sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, and even from 5 feet away, Cole could smell cheap perfume mixed with something sharper, bleach, maybe, or cleaning chemicals. Her eyes narrowed when she saw him. "Cole Hartman, what the hell are you doing here?" "School called," Cole said evenly. Mira was upset. "They couldn't reach you." "Well, you reach me now." Vanessa's hand shot out, gripping Myra's shoulder hard enough that the girl flinched. "Thanks for the delivery service. You can go." Cole didn't move. He was looking at Myra's face, at the way she'd gone completely still under her mother's touch, at the way her eyes had fixed on the ground, avoiding both of them. "The school's worried about her," Cole said. "They said she's been missing a lot of days. She gets sick. Kids get sick." Vanessa's smile was sharp and false. "Not really your business, is it? You're not her father. Dean's dead, remember?" The casual cruelty in her voice made Cole's jaw tighten. "I'm her uncle. An uncle she's never met. An uncle who didn't even know she existed until today." Vanessa pulled Mira closer to her, a possessive gesture that made Cole's instincts flare. "We're fine here. Don't need any help from the Hartman family. Didn't need it when Dean was alive. Don't need it now." Cole's eyes dropped to Myra's wrist, where Vanessa's fingers dug into her skin. Even in the dim light, he could see the faint shadows of bruises, yellow-green marks that spoke of older injuries healing. His gaze snapped back to Vanessa's face. She saw him notice. For just a second, something flickered in her expression, guilt, maybe, or defiance. Then it was gone, replaced by that hard, brittle smile. "Thanks for bringing her home," Vanessa said, already stepping back into the house. "Mira, get inside. Now." Mira moved mechanically, slipping past her mother into the darkness beyond the doorway. She looked back once, those green eyes meeting Cole's, and in that glance he saw everything. Fear, desperation, a silent plea. Then the door slammed shut. Cole stood on the sagging porch, staring at the closed door. The lock clicked into place from inside. Through the thin walls, he could hear Vanessa's voice, muffled but harsh, scolding Mira for causing trouble. He walked slowly back to his truck, got in, started the engine. But he didn't drive away. He sat there, parked on the street, watching the house. The curtain in the front window twitched once, as if someone was checking to see if he'd left. Cole thought about Dean. About his brother's last words to Mira, instructions to find Cole if things got bad. Dean had known. Somehow, he'd known what Vanessa was capable of, what she might do without him there to protect their daughter. A little girl who looked like the Hartman family, who had Dean's smile in Cole's eyes, who flinched when her mother touched her. Cole's hands rested on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Something cold and hard settled in his chest, pushing aside the shock and confusion. It was a feeling he recognized from his years in the Marines, before he'd come home and taken this quiet job in this quiet town. A feeling that meant someone was in danger, and he had a choice to make. He couldn't save Dean. His brother was gone, had been gone for 2 years, and nothing would bring him back. But Mira was here, alive, afraid. Cole started the truck and pulled away from the curb, but he didn't go back to work. Instead, he drove to the lake, to the public access point where he and Dean used to fish as kids. He parked and walked down to the water's edge, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. The lake was steel gray under the overcast sky, small waves lapping at the rocky shore. The wind smelled like coming snow and dead leaves. Everything was quiet, the kind of quiet that let thoughts settle and sharpen. Cole pulled out his phone and looked at the photo Mira had given him, the one of him and Dean. 2 brothers, happy, before life got complicated. Before Dean met Vanessa. Before the car accident that wasn't really an accident. Cole had always suspected that, had wondered if Dean had been running from something that night, if the rain-slicked road was just an excuse for what happened. Now he knew. Dean had been running from this. From Vanessa. From a situation he couldn't fix, from the knowledge that his daughter wasn't safe and there was nothing he could do about it. But Cole could do something. Cole was still here, still alive, and Dean had trusted him enough to plant that seed in Myra's mind. Find your uncle. He'll help you. Cole stood there until the light began to fade, until the first snowflakes started to fall, melting as soon as they touched the water. Then he got back in his truck and drove home, his mind already working through possibilities, strategies, plans. He couldn't save Dean, but he'd save her, whatever it took, however long it took. He'd made that promise to himself on the porch, when the door slammed in his face and he heard Vanessa's harsh voice berating a frightened child. Now, he just had to figure out how to keep it. The next morning, Cole woke at 5:30, the same time he always did. But instead of his usual routine, coffee, shower, drive to work, he sat at his kitchen table with a notebook and started planning. First, he needed information. He needed to understand Myra's situation completely before he could act. The Marines had taught him that rushing into a situation without proper reconnaissance got people killed. This wasn't a combat zone, but the principles still applied. He started with what he knew. Mira was 8 years old, in 3rd grade at Pinewood Elementary. Her mother was Vanessa Cross. She'd kept her maiden name even when she was with Dean. The house on Maple Street, the one with the sagging porch. No father in the picture, not anymore. Cole opened his laptop and started searching. Public records weren't hard to find in a small town. Vanessa had a history. Nothing violent, but plenty of minor offenses. Unpaid parking tickets. A DUI from 3 years ago. A small claims court case from a landlord trying to collect back rent. And then, buried in the county court records, Cole found it. Dean had filed for custody 6 months before he died. The case had been dropped after his death, marked as dismissed petitioner deceased. Dean had tried. He tried to get Mira away from Vanessa legally, and he'd failed because he'd run out of time. Cole closed the laptop and drank his coffee, thinking. Legal routes were slow. Courts required evidence, proof, a pattern of abuse documented and verified. By the time the system moved, Mira could be seriously hurt, or worse. But Cole wasn't going to let that happen. At 7 o'clock, he called his supervisor and took a personal day. Bill sounded surprised. Cole never took time off, but didn't argue. Then Cole drove to Pinewood Elementary and parked across the street, engine running, watching the entrance. Parents dropped off their kids in a steady stream. Young mothers in minivans, fathers in work trucks, the occasional grandparent. Cole watched them all, learning the rhythm of the morning routine. At 8:15, Vanessa's gray Malibu pulled into the parking lot. Mira got out of the passenger side, her backpack hanging from one thin shoulder. Even from a distance, Cole could see how small she looked, how she kept her head down as she walked toward the school entrance. Vanessa didn't get out. She just sat in the driver's seat, smoking a cigarette, watching her daughter disappear into the building. Then she backed out and drove away. Cole waited 5 minutes, then followed. Vanessa's route took her straight to a place called the Timber Bar, a dive on the south end of town that opened at 9 for the serious drinkers. Cole parked down the street and watched her go inside. She stayed for 45 minutes, then came out and drove to the grocery store, then to a check cashing place, then back home. The pattern was clear. Vanessa wasn't working. She was living on whatever Dean had left behind, probably not much, and drinking away the rest. Cole drove back to the school. Recess was in full swing, kids running around the playground in the cold. He spotted Mira sitting alone on a bench near the building, watching the other children play, but not joining in. He got out of his truck and walked across the street, heading for the main entrance. Margaret, the secretary, looked up when he came in. "Mr. Hartman," she said, surprised. "Back again. I want to check on Mira," Cole said. "Make sure she's doing okay after yesterday." Margaret's expression softened. "That's kind of you. Let me call Mrs. Moss." Jennifer Moss appeared a few minutes later, and Cole asked if he could speak with her privately. They went to an empty classroom, and Cole closed the door behind them. "I need to know about Mira," he said without preamble. "You said she's been missing school. How often?" Jennifer hesitated, clearly uncertain about sharing information with someone who was technically a stranger. But something in Cole's face must have convinced her, because she sighed and pulled out her grade book. "She's missed 23 days this semester," Jennifer said quietly. "Almost a third of the school year. And when she is here," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "she's different, withdrawn. She used to be more engaged, but after the summer, something changed." "Bruises?" Cole asked. Jennifer's eyes met his. "Sometimes. She always has an explanation. Fell down, ran into a door, got hurt playing. But the pattern..." She shook her head. "Mr. Hartman, I've reported my concerns to the school counselor. We've contacted Child Protective Services twice. They did home visits both times and found nothing conclusive." "What does that mean?" "It means Mira wouldn't talk. And without her testimony, without clear evidence of abuse, CPS can't act." The mother denied everything, kept the house clean during the visits, and Mira backed up her story. Jennifer's voice was tight with frustration. The system doesn't work when the child is too afraid to speak up. Cole felt that cold, hard knot in his chest tighten. "What about her grades?" "Failing most subjects. She used to be a good student back in first grade. Now she barely participates. She seems..." Jennifer struggled for the right word. "Traumatized." They talked for another 15 minutes. Jennifer showed him Myra's file, let him read the counselor's notes and the CPS reports. Every page confirmed what Cole had suspected. Mira was in danger, and no one was doing anything about it. When Cole left the school, he had a plan forming. If the system wouldn't help, he'd have to work outside it, not against it. He wasn't stupid enough to break laws that would get him arrested and leave Mira even more vulnerable, but around it, through the cracks, in ways that couldn't be traced back to him. He spent the rest of the day gathering supplies. He drove to a town 40 miles away, where no one knew him, and bought a set of small wireless cameras from an electronics store. The kind used for home security, easy to hide, with remote viewing capability. Then he stopped at a hardware store and picked up a few other items: batteries, cable, weatherproof housings. That night, back in his garage, Cole set up the system on his workbench. His background was in security systems. That's what he'd done in the Marines, and what he kept doing for a few years after he got out, before taking the easier, quieter job at Public Works. He knew how these devices worked, how to make them invisible. By midnight, he had 4 cameras ready. Small, black, easily concealed. Long battery life. Connected to an app on his phone that would let him view the footage from anywhere. Cole sat back, looking at his work. This was crossing a line. Installing hidden cameras on someone's property, recording without permission. It was illegal. If he got caught, he'd face charges. Lose his job, probably do time. But the alternative was watching a little girl suffer, knowing he could have done something and chose not to. It wasn't really a choice at all. The next morning, Cole went to work like normal. Showed up at 8, signed off on permits, attended a meeting about winter road maintenance. To everyone around him, He was the same Cole Hartman he'd always been, quiet, competent, reliable. At lunch, he drove past Myra's school and confirmed Vanessa's pattern hadn't changed. She dropped Mira off, went to the timber bar, spent the morning drinking. After work, Cole drove to Maple Street and parked 3 blocks away. He walked to the house, moving like he belonged there, just another person in the neighborhood. The house next to Vanessa's place had a storage shed in the backyard, old and weathered, with a view of Vanessa's back door. Cole placed the first camera in the shed's eaves, angling it downward. The second camera went on a utility pole across the street, attached to the back of a transformer box where no one would notice it. The third went in the crook of a tree near the driveway. The fourth camera was trickier. Cole waited until dark, then approached the house from the back. Through the window, he could see Vanessa passed out on the couch, an empty bottle on the floor beside her. Mira wasn't visible, probably in her room. Cole moved silently to the back porch. The door was unlocked. He eased it open, wincing at the creak of old hinges, and stepped into the kitchen. The house smelled like stale cigarettes and rotting food. Dishes were piled in the sink. The floor was sticky under his boots. Cole moved quickly, eyes adjusting to the darkness, looking for the right spot. In the living room, Mira sat on the stairs leading up to the second floor. She heard him come in. Her eyes were wide and frightened in the dim light from the television. Cole put a finger to his lips. Quiet. He pulled something from his pocket, a small stuffed bear, new, with a tiny camera hidden in its eye. He'd bought it that afternoon, along with the other supplies. He held it out to Mira. She looked at the bear, then at him, confused. Hide this in your room, Cole whispered, barely audible. Keep it where you can see it. And remember, your dad wanted me to help you. I'm going to help you. Mira took the bear slowly, her fingers closing around it. She nodded once, understanding more than Cole had expected. He left the same way he'd come, out the back door, moving quickly through the dark yard and back to the street. His heart was pounding, adrenaline singing through his veins. That had been risky. If Vanessa had woken up, if a neighbor had seen him, but it was done. Back in his truck, Cole pulled out his phone and opened the app. For camera feeds appeared on the screen, grainy in the low light, but functional. He could see the back door, the front porch, the driveway. And if Mira kept the bear in her room, he'd be able to see what happened there too. Cole drove home and spent the night watching. Vanessa didn't move from the couch. Around midnight, Mira came downstairs, got a glass of water, and went back to her room. She was limping slightly. The next day, Cole established a routine. Work in the morning, drive past the school at lunch, check the camera feeds throughout the day. He watched Vanessa's patterns, learned her schedule. She drank every day, usually starting mid-morning. By evening, she was drunk more often than not. And Mira tried to be invisible. She came home from school and went straight to her room. She only came out when Vanessa called for her, and those interactions were never good. Cole documented everything, saved video files, made notes with timestamps. 3 days into his surveillance, he finally saw what he'd been dreading. It was evening. Mira had forgotten to take out the trash. Vanessa was drunk, angry about something, maybe nothing, maybe everything. The camera in the living room caught it all. Vanessa's hand shot out, striking Mira across the face. The girl stumbled backward, caught herself on the wall. Vanessa followed, shouting, her voice slurred but vicious. She grabbed Myra's arm and shook her, hard enough that the girl's head snapped back. Then she reached for her belt. Cole watched from his living room, phone gripped so tight in his hand that his knuckles went white. He watched Vanessa strike her daughter with the belt, once, twice. Watched Mira crumple to the floor, not crying, not making a sound. When it was over, Vanessa walked away, left Mira on the floor, and went back to her bottle. Cole turned off his phone. He sat in the darkness of his living room, breathing slowly, carefully, fighting the rage that threatened to overwhelm him. He couldn't watch anymore. He had enough evidence. More than enough. Now he just had to decide what to do with it. The sheriff's office was housed in a small brick building near the courthouse, one of the few places in town that stayed busy year-round. Cole walked in the next afternoon and asked for Harvey Dugan. Harvey had been sheriff for 15 years, elected 4 times running. He was in his late 50s, with silver hair and the thick build of a man who'd stopped worrying about his weight a decade ago. He'd known Cole since childhood, had served with their father in Vietnam. "Cole Hartman," Harvey said, standing up from his desk when Cole entered his office. "Didn't expect to see you here. Everything all right?" "I need to talk to you about something," Cole said, closing the door behind him. "Something serious." Harvey's expression shifted, the easy friendliness replaced by professional attention. "Sit down. What's going on?" Cole sat and pulled out his phone. He'd spent the morning editing the video footage, cutting out the most damning parts, preparing a case. He showed Harvey the videos without comment. Vanessa hitting Mira, Vanessa drunk and screaming, Vanessa dragging her daughter up the stairs by her hair. Harvey watched in silence. When the videos ended, he was quiet for a long moment. "Jesus Christ," he finally said. "Who is this?" "Vanessa Cross. She lives on Maple Street. The girl is Mira. She's my niece. Dean's daughter." Harvey looked up sharply. "Dean had a kid? Found out a week ago. School called me because Mira was upset. I've been keeping an eye on the situation since then." "Keeping an eye on it," Harvey repeated slowly. "Cole, where did you get these videos?" This was the tricky part. Cole had known this question was coming, had prepared his answer. Anonymous source. Someone in the neighborhood who's concerned about the child. It wasn't convincing, and they both knew it. But Harvey didn't push. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face. "You know, I can't use this as evidence," Harvey said. "These were obtained illegally, and without knowing the source, without being able to verify chain of custody." "I know," Cole said. "I'm not asking you to arrest her based on the videos. I'm asking you to investigate. Do a home visit. Talk to the girl. You'll see the bruises. You'll see the situation." Harvey was quiet again, thinking. Finally, he nodded. "I'll send someone over. Deputy Chun can do a welfare check, talk to both of them." "But Cole," he met Cole's eyes. "You need to stay out of this. Let us handle it. If you've been involved in obtaining evidence illegally, you could face charges. And that won't help the girl." "I understand," Cole said. But as he left the sheriff's office, he knew Harvey was wrong. The system was too slow, too bound by rules and procedures. A welfare check wouldn't change anything. Vanessa would clean up, put on a good show, and Mira would be too scared to tell the truth. Cole had seen this pattern before in Jennifer Moss's records. CPS had visited twice, and nothing had changed. No, if Cole wanted to save Mira, he'd have to do it himself. That night, Vanessa's car appeared outside the timber bar, just after 9 o'clock. Cole had been following her on and off for days now, learning her patterns. She always came here after Mira was asleep, always stayed until closing at 2 in the morning, always drove home drunk. Cole sat in his truck down the street, watching. He'd brought his laptop, and he had all 4 camera feeds open, monitoring the house. On the screen, he could see Myra's room. The bare camera showed her asleep in bed, curled up small under a thin blanket. At 10:30, Vanessa came stumbling out of the bar. She got in her car, took 3 tries to start the engine, and pulled out of the parking lot with her headlights off. Cole followed at a distance. Vanessa drove erratically, weaving across the center line, nearly sideswiping a parked car. Cole watched with cold calculation, his mind working through possibilities. One phone call. That's all it would take. An anonymous tip to the sheriff's office about a drunk driver. Vanessa would get pulled over, arrested for DUI. Second offense, she'd do jail time. And with her in jail, Mira would need someone to take care of her. Cole had his phone in his hand, Harvey's number already pulled up, but something stopped him. This wasn't enough. A DUI charge would put Vanessa away for a few months at most. And when she got out, Mira would go back to her. The system would make sure of it. Biological parents had rights, even abusive ones. No, Cole needed something more permanent. Something that would keep Mira safe forever. He put his phone away and kept following Vanessa home. She made it back to the house without crashing, more through luck than skill. She stumbled inside, and through the cameras, Cole watched her check on Mira, a perfunctory glance into the girl's room, before collapsing in her own bed. Cole sat in his truck on the dark street, thinking. He'd been in combat once, in Iraq during his second deployment. He'd seen what happened when you hesitated, when you followed rules that didn't account for reality. Good people died. Bad people got away. The military had taught him that sometimes you had to make hard choices. You had to do things that kept you up at night because the alternative was worse. This was one of those times. Cole started his engine and drove home. His garage was full of tools, equipment from his old job installing security systems. He knew how to make things look like accidents, knew how to cover his tracks, leave no evidence. He'd spent 2 weeks watching, documenting, building a case. Now it was time to act, but he'd be smart about it, patient. He'd wait for the right moment, the right opportunity, and when it came, he wouldn't hesitate. The call came on a Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks after Cole's visit to the sheriff's office. Vanessa's voice on the phone was slurred, mocking, dangerous. Cole Hartman, heard you've been asking about me. Cole set down the wrench he'd been using to fix his kitchen sink. Who told you that? Small town, Cole. People talk. Deputy Chin came by, asked a bunch of questions, and I heard you've been hanging around the school, playing Uncle of the Year. Her laugh was harsh. Little late for that, don't you think? What do you want, Vanessa? I want you to leave us alone. Me and Mira, we're doing just fine without the Hartman family sticking their nose in our business. Cole's jaw tightened. Through his phone's camera app, he could see the live feed from Vanessa's house. She was in the kitchen, bottle in hand. Mira sat at the table behind her, doing homework, trying to be invisible. Dean would want you to make sure she's okay, Cole said carefully. Dean's dead. He doesn't get a vote anymore. Vanessa took a drink straight from the bottle. And you know what? Good riddance. He was always trying to take her from me, always saying I wasn't good enough. Well, I'm still here, and he's not. I won. The casual cruelty in her voice made Cole's hand tighten around the phone. You didn't win anything. No, I've got his daughter. I've got the house, small as it is. I've got what's left of his life insurance. Another drink, and you've got nothing. Just like always, the older brother who never had anything Dean did. No girlfriend, no kids, no life. Just that pathetic job pushing papers. Cole took a slow breath. Don't rise to the bait. She's drunk, trying to provoke you. We need to talk, he said evenly. About Dean. About what really happened the night he died. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice had changed, still drunk, but sharper, more alert. What are you talking about? I've been doing some research. Dean filed for custody 6 months before he died. He was going to take Mira away from you. And then, conveniently, he had an accident. Are you accusing me of something? I'm saying we should talk. Face to face. Cole kept his tone calm, reasonable. Tonight, after Myra's asleep, just the two of us. Vanessa was quiet. Cole could hear her breathing, could imagine her calculating whether this was a threat or an opportunity. Fine, she said finally. Come over around 10. Mira will be in bed by then. Her voice dropped, became almost playful. Should be interesting. It's been a while since a man came to my house at night. She hung up. Cole sat in his kitchen, staring at his phone. The trap was set. Now he just had to be ready for it. He spent the rest of the afternoon preparing. He went through his garage, selecting specific tools, packing them into a duffel bag. Then he made several phone calls to the power company, posing as a resident on Maple Street reporting flickering lights. To his own voicemail, leaving a message about needing to check on his niece. Creating a trail, a reason for him to be at that house if anyone asked later. At 9:30, Cole drove to Maple Street. He parked 2 blocks away, out of sight of any cameras, his own or anyone else's. Then he walked through the dark streets, duffel bag over his shoulder, toward Vanessa's house. The neighborhood was quiet. Most people were inside, lights glowing behind curtains. Cole moved with practiced silence, staying in shadows. At 9:55, the streetlights on Maple Street went out. Cole had called in the power issue that afternoon. The company had promised to send a crew to investigate. But crews didn't work weekends unless it was an emergency. The flickering lights would get worse, then fail completely, a transformer issue, probably something that would take hours to fix. In the darkness, Cole approached Vanessa's house. The windows were dark too, but he could hear voices inside. Vanessa shouting, cursing the power outage. He waited on the back porch, listening. After a few minutes, he heard footsteps, then the back door opened. Vanessa stood there with a flashlight, squinting into the darkness. Cole, that you? Power's out all up and down the street. Cole said, stepping into the light. Bad transformer, probably. Vanessa stepped back, letting him in. The kitchen was dark except for a flashlight and a few candles she'd lit on the counter. The flickering light made shadows dance across the walls. "You here to talk? Or you here to play hero?" Vanessa asked. She'd been drinking. Cole could smell it on her breath, see it in the way she swayed slightly as she moved. "Where's Mira?" "Upstairs. Asleep." Vanessa set the flashlight on the counter and picked up her bottle instead. "So talk. What's this about, Dean?" Cole moved into the living room, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. Through the camera in the stuffed bear upstairs, he'd seen Mira go to bed an hour ago. She should be asleep by now. Should be safe in her room, away from whatever happened down here. "Dean didn't trust you," Cole said, turning to face Vanessa. "He was taking Mira away, and then he died. You think I killed him?" Vanessa laughed, harsh and sharp. "That's insane. He crashed his car in the rain. Accident. Was it? Jesus Christ." Vanessa took a long drink. "You're as paranoid as he was. Dean was always seeing threats that weren't there, always thinking I was out to get him. The truth is simpler. He was a lousy driver. It was raining, and he died. End of story." Cole studied her face in the candlelight. She believed what she was saying, which meant she probably wasn't responsible for Dean's death. But that didn't make her any less dangerous. "You're hurting her," Cole said quietly. "Mira, you're hurting her, and it needs to stop." Vanessa's expression shifted, hardened. "You don't know anything about raising a kid, about how hard it is being alone, having no money, no help. So you hit her?" "I discipline her. There's a difference." "No," Cole said. "There's not." Vanessa moved suddenly, aggressive. She grabbed a lamp from the side table, no power to make it work, but heavy enough to be a weapon, and swung at Cole's head. He saw it coming, sidestepped easily. The lamp crashed into the wall behind him, shattering. "Get out!" Vanessa screamed. "Get out of my house!" Cole didn't move. "I'm not leaving without Mira. You can't take her. She's mine. I'm her mother. You're not fit to be your mother." Vanessa swung at him again, this time with her fists. Cole caught her wrists, held her still. She was strong in the way desperate people are, fueled by rage and alcohol, but Cole was stronger. He'd been trained to handle combatants, to control situations without causing injury. He pushed her back, not hard, just enough to create distance. Vanessa stumbled, caught herself on the couch. "Here's what's going to happen," Cole said, his voice cold and level. "You're going to watch something, and then we're going to talk about what comes next." He pulled out a small USB drive from his pocket and held it up. "Every video I have of you hurting Mira, every moment I've documented over the past 2 weeks, it's all here. You can't use that against me. It's illegal surveillance." "I don't need to use it in court," Cole said. "I just need to send it to the right people. Child services, the school, the local news station. Let everyone in this town see what kind of mother you really are." Vanessa's face went white. "You wouldn't. Try me." They stared at each other in the candlelight. Cole could see the calculation in her eyes, the desperation. She was cornered, and she knew it. "What do you want?" Vanessa asked finally, her voice smaller now. "I want you to leave. Tonight. Walk away from Mira, from this town, from everything. I'll take custody of her, raise her like Dean wanted, and you'll never come back. And if I don't, then everyone sees the videos. You go to jail. Mira goes into foster care, which is better than staying with you, but not what she deserves." Cole's voice was steady, implacable. "This is your one chance to walk away with something. Take it." Vanessa sagged against the couch, the fight draining out of her. "I don't have anywhere to go. That's not my problem. You're just like him," she spat. "Just like Dean. Always so sure you're right. So certain you're the good guy." "I'm not the good guy," Cole said quietly. "I'm just the guy who's going to make sure Myra's safe. Whatever it takes." He set the USB drive on the coffee table, then pulled out an envelope. Cash, $2,000. Money he'd withdrawn from his savings that afternoon. "This should get you started. Bus ticket, first month's rent somewhere else. But you leave tonight, and you never come back." Vanessa stared at the envelope, then at Cole. "You're serious." "Completely." She picked up the envelope with shaking hands, counted the money. Then she looked up at the ceiling, toward Myra's room. "I do love her," Vanessa said softly. "I know you don't believe me, but I do. It's so hard. And Dean left me alone, and I..." Save it, Cole interrupted. Love isn't hitting your kid. Love isn't making her afraid to come home. Whatever you think you feel, it's not enough. Vanessa's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. Then the moment passed, replaced by that hard, bitter expression Cole had come to recognize. Fine, she said. I'll go. But not because of your threats. Because I'm tired. Tired of this town. Tired of struggling. Tired of being judged by people like you who think they're so much better. She stood up, grabbed her purse from the table. I'll pack a bag. Be out of here in an hour. 30 minutes, Cole said. And I'm not leaving until you're gone. Vanessa nodded. She walked past him, heading for the stairs. Cole watched her go, then followed at a distance. You want to check on Mira, make sure she was really asleep, really safe. Vanessa went to her own room and started throwing clothes into a bag. Cole stood in the hallway, waiting. After a few minutes, he heard soft footsteps behind him. Mira stood at her bedroom door, the stuffed bear clutched in her arms. She looked at Cole with those two knowing eyes. Is she leaving? Mira whispered. Cole crouched down to her level. Yes, your mom's going away for a while. Is she coming back? No, she's not coming back. Myra's face didn't change. No tears, no relief, no emotion at all. She just nodded, accepting it the way she'd learned to accept everything, quietly, without protest. You're going to come live with me, Cole said gently. If you want to. Would that be okay? Mira looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded again. Vanessa appeared in the doorway of her room, bag in hand. She saw Mira, and for just a second, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But it was gone quickly. Bye, baby, she said. Mira didn't answer. Vanessa walked down the stairs and out the front door without looking back. Cole watched from the window as she got in her car, threw her bag in the back seat, and drove away into the darkness. The power was still out. The house was still dark, but somehow it felt lighter. Cole turned to Mira. Pack some things. Your favorite clothes, any toys you want. We're leaving. 20 minutes later, they were in Cole's truck, driving away from Maple Street. Mira sat in the passenger seat with her backpack and the stuffed bear, staring out the window at the dark town passing by. Where are we going? She asked. My house. It's not fancy, but it's safe. You'll have your own room. Mira was quiet for a while. Then, what happened to my mom? Cole thought about his answer carefully. She made some bad choices, and now she's dealing with the consequences. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough. 3 weeks later, Cole woke to the sound of footsteps in his hallway. He sat up in bed, instantly alert before remembering. Mira? She lived here now. He got up and found her in the kitchen, standing on a stool to reach the cereal cabinet. The morning sun streamed through the windows, bright and cold. Morning, Cole said. Morning, Mira echoed. She'd started talking more in the past few weeks, though she was still quiet. Reserved, learning to trust that this new normal would last. They ate breakfast together, cereal for her, coffee for him. Cole had officially applied for custody the day after Vanessa disappeared. The court process was slow, but Harvey Dugan had vouched for him, and the school had provided statements about Myra's situation. Child Services had done a home inspection and found everything satisfactory. Vanessa hadn't been seen since that night. Her car had been found 3 days later, parked at a truck stop 200 miles away. No sign of her. No contact, no calls, no attempts to reach out. The official story was that she'd abandoned her daughter and skipped town to avoid legal consequences. The unofficial story, the one that spread through gossip and speculation, was that she'd finally hit rock bottom and run away from her problems. Cole knew the truth, or at least part of it. The night Vanessa left, she'd driven away in her car. But Cole had followed. He'd watched her pull over at that truck stop, go inside to buy more alcohol, and he'd waited. When she came back out, drunk and stumbling, he'd been there in the parking lot. They talked again, a short conversation, final words. You'll never tell anyone you're Myra's mother, Cole had said. You'll never contact her, never try to see her. You'll disappear completely. Or what? Vanessa had sneered. You'll release your videos? Or worse. Cole's voice had been flat, emotionless. I've already shown you what I'm capable of. Don't test me further. Vanessa had believed him. Cole had seen in her eyes real fear finally. The realization that he wasn't bluffing, that he would do whatever necessary to protect Mira. "There's a bus leaving at midnight," Cole had said. "Get on it. Go somewhere far away and start over. That's your only option." Vanessa had gotten on that bus. Cole had watched it pull away, taking her out of their lives forever. And then, just to be sure there were no loose ends, he'd driven her car deep into the woods off Highway 51, to a place he knew from his youth, where the forest was thick and the trails were long abandoned. He parked it there, wiped it down, and walked the 5 miles back to his truck. By the time anyone found the car, if they ever did, there would be nothing to connect it to him. And even if there was, what crime had he committed? He'd convinced an abusive mother to leave. He'd protected a child. The rest was just details. Now, watching Mira eat her cereal in the morning sunlight, Cole felt no guilt. He'd done what needed doing. Dean would have approved. "Do I have school today?" Mira asked. "Yeah, but it's Friday, so weekend after. Can we go fishing this weekend?" She looked at him hopefully. "Like you and my dad used to?" Cole felt something warm and unexpected in his chest. "Yeah, we can do that." After breakfast, Cole drove Mira to school. She got out of the truck with her backpack, looking back once to make sure he was still there. He waved, and she smiled, small but real. He watched her walk into the building, joining the other kids in the morning rush. She didn't look broken anymore. Didn't look afraid. She looked like a regular 8-year-old girl with a regular life and regular problems. That was all Cole wanted for her. A chance at normal. The weekend came, and they went fishing at the lake. The same spot where Cole and Dean had fished as kids, where Dean had taught Cole to cast and reel, where they'd spent countless summer days. Mira was a natural. She caught 3 bluegills in the first hour, laughing each time one took her line. Cole showed her how to remove the hooks carefully, how to release fish she didn't want to keep. "My dad taught you this?" Mira asked. "Actually, I taught him," Cole said. "I was older, so I learned first. Then I showed him." "What was he like?" "Well, he was young." Cole thought about it. "Fearless. Always getting into trouble. Taking risks. He made me nervous sometimes because he never thought about consequences. But he was also good. Kind. He cared about people." "Do I look like him?" "Yeah. You've got a smile." Mira was quiet for a moment, watching her bobber float on the water. Then, "I miss him." "Me too." They fished until the sun started to set, painting the lake in shades of orange and gold. As they packed up their gear, Cole noticed smoke rising in the distance, somewhere deep in the woods beyond the ridge. Probably the Forestry Service doing a control burn. They did that sometimes, clearing deadfall to prevent wildfires. Or maybe it was something else. Maybe it was the last trace of Vanessa's car, finally found, finally eliminated. Cole didn't know for sure. Didn't need to know. Some things were better left uncertain. Mysteries that protected everyone involved. "Ready to head home?" he asked Mira. She nodded, slinging her fishing rod over her shoulder. They walked back to the truck together, their shadows long in the fading light. Cole had spent his whole adult life trying to be good, trying to follow the rules, trying to do things the right way. But the right way had failed Mira. The system had failed her. Everyone who was supposed to protect her had failed. So Cole had done it himself. Had broken laws, crossed lines, made choices that would haunt him if he thought about them too long. But looking at Mira now, smiling, relaxed, safe, he knew he'd do it again. Would do worse if necessary. Because some things mattered more than rules. Some people deserved protection, no matter the cost. Dean had known that. Had tried to save his daughter and failed. Cole had succeeded where his brother couldn't. And in that success, he'd found a kind of peace. They drove home through the twilight, past the lake, past the town, past the turnoff to Maple Street, where an empty house sat dark and forgotten. Cole glanced at Mira in the passenger seat. She was looking out the window, quiet but content, the stuffed bear in her lap. "You hungry?" he asked. "Yeah." "Pizza. Can we get the one with extra cheese?" "Sure." Simple conversations. Normal life. The kind of future Dean had wanted for his daughter. The future Cole had fought to give her. As they pulled into his driveway, Cole made himself a promise. He'd be better than good enough. He'd be the parent Mira deserved, the guardian who never failed her, the one person in her life who would always keep her safe. No matter what, no matter who tried to stop him. The house lights were on. He'd left them burning that morning, wanting Mira to come home to warmth and brightness instead of darkness. They got out of the truck and walked inside together into the life they were building one day at a time. Behind them, in the distance, smoke still rose from the woods. But neither of them looked back. There was nothing behind them worth seeing, nothing in the past that mattered anymore. Only forward, only the future, only the quiet, determined promise Cole had made on a school porch weeks ago. I couldn't save Dean, but I'll save her. And he had. He'd saved her. Whatever came next, whatever consequences found him, whatever price he'd eventually pay, it was worth it. She was worth it.